Hello everybody, welcome back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos, and today we're here with previewing Group E of the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Now with Spain, Germany, Japan and Costa Rica to come. Without further ado, let's get into it. So let's kick things off with the winners of the tournament back in 2010, and that is Spain. Now, when we take a look at Spain's road to qualification, they got drawn in a group with Spain, Greece, Georgia, and Kosovo. And as you would expect, they did get through that group with relative ease. Across those 8 games, they won 6, drew 1, and only lost 1 of them, with a plus 10 goal difference, having scored 15 and only conceded 5. Spain, as you would expect, got through that group with relative ease. When we take a look at their most recent continental tournament, they did finish in the semi-finals of the European Championships last year, falling to the eventual winners Italy on penalties. When we take a look at 4 years ago at their previous World Cup campaign, it was slightly more disappointing than what they were able to do at the Euros, finishing at the round of 16 with a penalty loss to the host nation Russia, which, considering the talent that Spain had in that squad at that time, is a slightly poor performance if you were to look back on it. However, when we take a look at what they were back in 2010, they don't have the talent and the elegance of the likes of Xavi, Iniesta, David Villa, all these other players that in the current squad. However, the tiki-taka style of football is still very, very prominent in this Spanish system. They start as tradition in a 4-3-3 system. However, just like it was back in 2010, it doesn't really play like a traditional 4-3-3. However, what this football transitions into is like a little bit like a 2-4-4. Now, how this is achieved is by having one of the midfielders, one of the 2 advanced number 8s, dropping slightly deeper to create a double pivot alongside the more traditional central defensive midfielder, who are then joined by the marauding fullbacks to create that 4-man across the middle third. And with the other central midfielder that pushes up to the attacking line to almost play as a second striker, that's where you get the more advanced quartet in the front third, leaving the 2 central defenders to act as both the last layer of defense as well as the first layer of attack. Now, they play relatively risk-averse football at stages throughout build-up. They do like to maintain their structure, and they are very wary of the transition and of the counter-attack should they turn the ball over. However, this is where Spain kind of deceive you in a sense. As they move up the pitch, they like to up the tempo as they get into the final third, and the creation of movement is the way that Spain like to attack, with movement in between the lines and coming in and out of the half spaces. This is where they like to catch teams out, lacking in defence, and dropping their concentration ever so slightly. That's where they like to exploit space. Now, this system worked for them brilliantly at the Euros, and expect to see this deployed at the World Cup. Now, this system is heavily reliant on a couple of key features, and one of them is the solid defensive midfielder, and that will probably be Rodri at this tournament. He was a player that we covered for one key player at every nation at the 2022 FIFA World Cup video that's already on the YouTube channel, and he will be Spain's main cog heading into the tournament. But Spain obviously are a team that have had fantastic pedigree at the World Cup. They want to avenge their poor performance 4 years ago, and with a relatively easy group, they could go one step further than what they did in the Euros and really cause a shock heading into Qatar. So let's move on to the second team in this group, and that is Germany. Now, Germany obviously are a team with a major history at this tournament, and despite their horrendous performance back in 2018, they will be looking to once again show just how good they are on the world stage. Now, when we take a look at their World Cup qualification campaign, like you'd expect of a team of this class, they did get through relatively easily. They were drawn in a group with Liechtenstein, Iceland, Armenia, Romania, and North Macedonia, and as you would expect, from those 10 games, they won 9 and only lost 1, with a goal difference of plus 32, only conceding 4 goals throughout those 10 games. This has shown us that Germany will be a force to be reckoned with heading into Qatar. Now, when we take a look at the European Championship campaign, they did fall at the round of 16 to England 2-0 after having played through the group of death that consisted of Portugal and France. So they do have recent experience playing against the top teams in the world. So they should not have any rust or any lack of match fitness heading into the tournament from that respect. Now, when we take a look at the 2018 campaign, it was abysmal. Of course, they did win the tournament in emphatic fashion back in 2014. However, they could not replicate it 4 years ago, getting knocked out in the group stage and in a very shocking and appalling fashion. Now, when we take a look at their most recent continental campaign, the European Championships, this was a final tournament for Joachim Löw, and in that tournament they did deploy a 3-4-1-2 system. Now, this system was built on having very good all-rounded, talented fullbacks with the likes of Gossans on the left and Joshua Kimmich on the right-hand side, as well as a very fluid and interchangeable front line that were able to just shock defenses with their movement and with their pace. They did sit relatively deep in a five at the back system for some games. They restricted the space that the opposition were given, or they did restrict the space that the opposition were given, and they look to hit teams on the counter attack, and they look to hit teams with pace and with fluid counter attack. However, obviously that was Joachim Löw's final tournament. They have transitioned to Hans de Flick, and under Hans de Flick they have moved back to a more traditional 4-2-3-1 system. This has involved a couple of key features, and one of which is involving Jamal Musiala as one of the key attacking tens in this squad alongside Thomas Muller. Now, with the squad dynamic of having Musiala and Thomas Muller, though that young experienced player Musiala and the more experienced and veteran style player that is Thomas Muller, this creates for a fantastic squad dynamic there, as well as having their captain Joshua Kimmich moved from that right wing back position back to his more traditional and more influential central defensive midfielder position. Now, as typical of a German footballing side, it is very high tempo, and that it revolves around intricate movement in the final third. They press very intently and look to regain possession. However, they aren't risk averse in the final third. They do like to break lines, and they do like to get in behind the defense. While this German team isn't as direct and as kind of murder ball, as Marcelo Bielsa would say, as it was back in 2014, they do like to play patient football in the middle third, in the defensive third. However, when they do get into the final third, they do like to break the lines. They do like to play more aggressive football in that final third and look to catch teams out with quick movement, intricate movement in the final third. Now, they definitely do have the ability to break games apart and win games 3-4, 5-0, just because of the talent they have in that squad and the way that they play. It is very used to smashing teams 3-4, 5-0, and they can get those scorelines to blow out, especially later in the game. However, when they do face a little bit more pressure when they do face teams that are slightly more competitive, they do like to sit back and are able to suffocate the player. They are able to suffocate games and really make it a grind, like we saw at times at the Euros. This squad is able to make games grind games out and really make them a little bit of a snooze fest to try and get the most out of it. Now, when we look at their performance back in 2018, the German national team are a side that are built on principle and are built on being mentality monsters in a sense. They will be looking to avenge that 2014 heartbreak, that 2018 heartbreak, I should say, and look to replicate what they did back in 2014. And in a group which they should get through with relative ease, they could go all the way and really replicate what they did back in 2014. So let's move on to the third team in Group A, and that is Japan. Now, when we take a look at Japan's qualification campaign, it was a little bit more tricky than what many people would expect. They did get drawn in a group with Vietnam, China, Oman, Australia, and Saudi Arabia. However, they only finished second in that group behind Saudi Arabia. From those 10 games, they won 7, drew 1, and lost 2. They finished with a +8 goal difference, which was the best in that group. So you can see that the talent in that Japanese squad is most certainly there, and they definitely do have the ability to pass teams off the park and really show just how good they are based off that. Now, when we take a look at their most recent continental campaign, they did lose in the final of the most recent Asian Cup to Qatar. They did lose that game 3-1, and that goes to show just how good Qatar are as well. But however, Japan were expected to go really far in that tournament, and probably when we take a look at that game before the final, they were expected to win that. So a slightly disappointing performance when it comes to that respect. However, when we take a look at their tournament before that, they beat Turkmenistan, Oman, and Uzbekistan in their groups before beating Saudi Arabia, Vietnam, and Japan, all relatively comfortably. They actually beat Iran, not Japan. They beat Iran 3-0 in the semi-finals, which shows that maybe the final was a little bit of a blip in the radar in a sense, and should not be taken as seriously as what maybe the rest of the tournament should be. Now, when we take a look at the 2018 World Cup campaign, they qualified from their group with 4 points, and were actually 2-0 up with 15 minutes to go in the round of 16 against Belgium. However, they conceded 3 goals in the remaining minutes to lose the game in heartbreaking circumstances. That will obviously be something that will play on the minds of all the Japanese players, and that is something that they will be looking to avenge heading into Qatar. Now, in the way that they play, they do like to deploy a 4-1-4-1 system, and that is built off the back of Wataru Endo being that central defensive midfield single pivot that is so crucial to the system. Him being at that base of midfield allows for the attacking players to really show just how good they are, and as a staple of the Japanese outfit for the last couple of World Cups and the last couple of years, this intricate intrinsic attacking a direct ball movement in the final third is something that they do pride their game around. Now, when we take a look at another key avenue for Japan is Juanya Ito. Now, he scored 6 goals in 10 games from qualification, and the right wing position that he likes to occupy. He does like to be one of Japan's most highest and advanced players in the Japanese attack. He does like to break through the lines, get in behind the opposition, and he's their main outball and will be very, very dangerous, especially on the counter attack. Now, Japan have always been synonymous with an attacking intrinsic style of football, and that is no different heading into Qatar. Now, expect to see this in spades in Qatar, especially against teams, or especially against Costa Rica, who they should fancy themselves against. Now, on any given day, they can break a game apart and really cause some major upsets in the group, and as well as they could cause some upsets against teams like Germany and teams against Spain, who could take them a little bit for granted or could take them lightly. Japan will definitely be a team that could shock the world, just like they did 4 years ago, and just like if they are able to get through the group, they will be looking to avenge their heartbreak back in 2018. So let's finish up with the final team in Group A, and that is the 2014 dark horses of the tournament, Costa Rica. Now, when we take a look at Costa Rica's road to qualification, I should say, they were drawn in that very, very tough CONCACAF draw, and they did finish in the intercontinental playoff places. From those 14 games that they did play, they won 7, drew 4, and lost 3. They only finished in that place due to goal difference. They did have a 6 goal difference less than the USA in third place. However, from that intercontinental playoff, they did beat New Zealand 1-0 through a Joel Campbell goal in the 3rd minute and got through that game relatively easily. Now, when we take a look at their recent continental tournament, I should say, in the CONCACAF Gold Cup, they won all 3 of their group games, despite actually getting a red card in both of those. However, they only got as far as the round 16, where they lost to Canada 2-0 in pretty convincing fashion. Now, in their last World Cup appearance, they couldn't replicate their heroics back in 2014. They only managed 1 point, a 2-2 draw against Switzerland that came through a 90th minute own goal from the Swiss to get Costa Rica that solitary point. Now, they had a horrible start to the qualification campaign. Costa Rica won 6 of their final 7 games, including the USA and Canada, to get through to the intercontinental playoffs. So they do have the ability, when the chips are down, to beat some of the better teams in the world and to really upset some teams that are more fancied than them. However, when we take a look at what they are on the pitch, they are a very tricky side to analyze. They are very reliant on a system-based way of playing football without having any on-field stars, barring, of course, Keylor Navas in goal. They are reliant on a solid defensive system at the behest of really anything true offensive-wise. They do float between a 4-4-2 and a 4-5-1, and they expect to see them try and suffocate games, and especially against Spain and Germany, expect to see them to try and suffocate those games, really grind those games out, and really make it a little bit of a defensive chess match instead of a more free-flowing offensive game. The Japan game could be a little bit more tricky for them, as they might think that they do have a little bit more of a chance in that game. They might look to express themselves and maybe leave themselves a little bit overexposed in the offensive areas, which could leave them susceptible to the counter-attack. If they can do anything to what they did back in 2014, then that would be phenomenal. Although that squad back in 2014 was a lot younger, a lot more energetic, and it could be maybe one step too far for Costa Rica. Once again, they only got through in the qualification campaign because of their unbelievable end to it, winning 6 of their last 7 games. Can they carry that form over to the World Cup? Who knows? I would heavily doubt I would be very surprised if they got out of this group, and even if they get a point, because of the way that they do play. Japan could be looking to break this Costa Rican system down. However, they showed back in 2014 that anything is possible, and who knows, maybe they'll be able to replicate their heroics back in 2014. So yes, thank you all very much for watching another video here on the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel, previewing Group A for the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comment section below who gets through in this group from 1st to 4th. Make sure you subscribe to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel, like the video. See you guys next time, and goodbye.